Hello, I'm Sam. I'm a graduate student here at Portland State University, and I am here to showcase our final results of our exhibit. We come here to grow: moments of joy, movements of change, an exhibit of student history here at Portland State University. All of our curators. We have me, Charlie, Kelly, Kristen, who is not here, and then facilitated with Patricia Schechter, and then our lovely collaborators, Raps, Special Collections, and Brandy. So today Patricia gave us a little brief introduction on like the history of this project. Most of you do know it, but I'm going to be going over our methodology and theories, through lines, photo selection, layout and design, and then we'll also touch on collaboration and feedback today. Yeah. I think we're going to go on to methodologies. I could not get those extra 4 pages of blank space to leave, no matter what I did. So methodologies, when we first started this project, we kind of had kind of free reign in a way. We know we wanted it to be a history of Portland State, and that was kind of where we were handed. That was about it. So we took time. The curators took time to read the history of Portland State. We started with Dodds, a 50-year history of Portland State University, to try to get an idea of what we were working with. It did stop in like the 90s, but that got us like the majority of history that we weren't going to be as familiar with. And what we kind of gathered from that is that there was really, like, it was a top-down view of Portland State. It focused more on the the faculty and staff, which are phenomenal, and we love our faculty and staff. But this exhibit was supposed to be going to Smith Student Union, and the students were just kind of stick figures. So that also made it hard going through the archives. We kind of had an idea what we wanted, but we didn't really know. It was like going grocery shopping when you're hungry and no list. You're like, God, I just want everything. So going through the archives was really challenging at first, because we're like, well, that's a cool picture, save it. That's a cool one, save it. So then we did some surveys, which we'll go over more later. But what these surveys did, the first initial one in winter 2025, was we wanted a one-word history from students on their view about what Portland State is to them. And through that, we got some through lines that helped us, thematic through lines. We have change, community, and joy. And that was our but why. Why do we want this? It to be remembered forever. We wanted to highlight the change, community, and joy that students offered here and lived here at Portland State University. And then huzzah, we had our grocery list. I love all the blank pages. And this is when we got to research and design. This was a little tricky, to try to meet our partners' wants. Was a little hard. This was a great, beautiful mock-up, but we were given right off the bat, like, we can't have anything physical there. We don't have the budget for screens, so this was a no-go. So we kind of had to just start again from scratch, which is okay. It was really fun. We looked around campus to see other forms of like just photo exhibits around campus, and we found this one. This one is in the PSU bookstore, and they're like huge, and they're metal, and they're sturdy, and they are beautiful. And we like this idea of having an anchor image with like 2 to 3 images throughout, giving us the ability to showcase more photos. Hey, Charlie, can you turn the alarm off on my iPad? I was wondering what that was. And then we did our first design mock-ups, choosing the photos that highlighted change, joy, and community, using that layout. We had mock-ups. I did these in, I think it was the end of fall term, 2024. And then we also had one of our other curators, Kelly, go through, and we did our versions. And we first presented these at the end of in December, just to show where we were at, a proof of concept. that we wanted to highlight joy through student activity. Throughout this, we gave that presentation in December, and we were kind of thrown for a loop. We did things in a very chronological order, and we got asked the question, why? Why do we need to do things in a chronological order? And we sat with it for a second. We were historians at first, and we were like, because it's history and it's time. What do you mean? And then we're like, you're right. We don't have to do that. If we make it clear what our themes are to the audience that is viewing it, we can focus more on that instead of like through the decade change, which is interesting. There is an argument for that, but it allowed us to free ourselves up. That first digital mock-up I designed to try to get something interesting on the wall. We had challenges because along the top, which we'll see more when we go in the physical photos of the exhibit, there's 5 recessed lights. That center one is centered to the wall. Beautiful, wonderful, amazing. The rest are too close to the inside wall to make everything even. And we also wanted to find a way to fit as many photographs as we can instead of just like 5 along the wall. As you'll see, we put it up, just paper, just to see how it looked on the wall. As you can also tell, that's a mirrored image. It took a long time, which is something that we were concerned about. So we did want to just try that 5 not centered on the lights. It did drive me a little crazy, just to see what it looked like. And honestly, that took us, I think, like 20 minutes, and we're like, wow, okay, something to be said. We stood back and we looked at them together in conversation, and we're like, actually, it works. The 5 that we chose, it's staying today. We chose those 5, and those are our student key change makers that we identified. Key groups or key students that really made impactful change. Just so happens that they're each like 20 years apart, which was wonderful. And then in conversation from those student change makers that helped cultivate joy, change, and community, we have like student examples of that joy, change, and community. We saw them in conversation, and I like them. They're like 2 halves of a puzzle. It's beautiful to me. And then we have the paper draft installation. That is what's currently up. That one is minus the words because we chose words from that Winter 2025 survey, like student words, to be placed on the wall. Yeah, with the title and text boxes. These were put up so we can show RAPS our proof of concept, we can talk about it more, and we can also start getting feedback, which was a very vital part of our process. And now for like the final design recommendations, I think only a handful of people have seen these. I looked through PSU and wanted to find inviting color palettes to bring more excitement into the space other than just like pictures on walls, which that by itself has already made the space inviting. And like people are like, whoa, there's things here. It's really cool. But I wanted something a little bit more invigorating. So I found a color palette, and I have examples of these color palettes used. I'm like, yeah, they're around. So the first one on the north wall, our 5-panel wall, is a very monochromatic palette. We kind of got a little bit of feedback that we may want something more PSU branded. And so I decided to stick with our greens. All of these colors are using the palette that I showed you, but if you want something more exciting, the purple. The purple always gets it for me. Those are all still colors found within the PSU color palette, and it just adds interest and movement to the exhibit. And then I have the same thing on the south wall. The south wall has been the hardest wall for me because of all the different images. It's hard to make it exact in a mock-up, but something that doesn't distract from the images but still pulls your eye. So I have a green cohesive color palette there, and then our purple one, which is very fun. And again, I know that this can be done. We have examples of it in Kramer and also Smith Center. Yeah, and we also have a slight change to our title through student feedback, which we'll talk a little bit more about. I was posed the question, well, why isn't the title a question? What do you want me to get from this? So it's a little hard to see there, but I do have physical prints of this where it's a little easier. And it says, where do you find your joy? How do you create community? It's really asking people that question that we want to know from them and how they can connect with the images. All right. Collaboration and feedback. I think you need to scroll to the top. No, it's okay.
Is it?
More, yeah.
Oh, here we go.
A little bit more. There we go. Collaboration is very key in public history. Normally, as public historians, we're facilitators of someone else's visions or goals, not exactly like putting our own through line or our vision on it. So it was very interesting and a little challenging to work with something that we had kind of free reign. We became uh, the facilitators, but also like the creators of a vision here. But we didn't want it to be just our own voices. Patricia being a faculty member, me being a student, Charlie and Kelly as well, we knew that we represented a small population of it. While diverse, it was a small population of PSU students. So we had two different surveys that went out. Our Winter 2025, that's where we got our key definitions of what students truly thought about Portland State, what parts of Portland State that they engage in, just so we know, try to get a better picture of what we can represent, what students do enjoy. That was the poster, and from that poster, we kind of got our inspiration of this like retro, groovy vibe. Thanks to that poster. That was our original color palette, but I've slightly tweaked it. And now we have our Spring 2025 survey, which has been probably the most important one. That is where we're actually getting feedback from students and outside members of the community, faculty members, about what they think is on the wall right now. We have a small snippet of those results in this, but it's really hard because people are giving us really lengthy thoughts. And overall, it's very positive, very positive. A lot of people are learning from it. So I have a snippet here. I didn't edit any of these. I just copied and pasted them from the Excel, which was directly taken from the survey itself. This is on our first one. You can see a column of our words that students thought of when they thought of Portland State. And then the second one, they're kind of long. There we go, we're almost there. Yeah. I just loved these thoughts. People were starting to get it, especially like when Charlie and I were there to like talk them through it a little bit, which is how we also knew that we needed to add text. But our main thing is, what was your biggest takeaway? Where do you find joy? And what questions do you have? Because we don't want to trample over other people's interpretations of this, but we do want to make sure our through lines are noticed and are understood. Yeah, this has been very fruitful, and I encourage you to like, when we share you the link of this online document, to go through the feedback, because people get it. They know that it's there to engage community and to like just highlight student change in community. Would you like to talk about the online portion?
Yes. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah. I think I blacked out a little bit.
You did really good. You saw really good.
Thank you for turning off my alarm.
Hello, my name is Charlie Huxley. I'm a graduating student in the master's program here in the history department. And I came into this project quite late in the game. A lot of the conceptual work had already been done, and that made me really nervous. But what we kind of started to find out is the fact that I hadn't been around and I hadn't been in the weeds of this project. I kind of became an asset of a new pair of eyes where I had a lot of questions. Patricia and Sam had to catch me up to speed and maybe explain it to me in a way that they didn't have to explain things to each other anymore. So probably towards the middle of the term, we started talking about the exhibit catalog that we would need to hand off, which is the list of everything in the exhibit. And I was like, awesome, I'll take care of that. I want to make it look nice. And from there, it expanded 10 times bigger. And I was like, what if I make a website that has far more things than just the catalog in it and make a lot more work for us? So we thought that that may be a really dynamic way to showcase that there are other ways of making this exhibit accessible, and not only accessible in a way to explore the exhibit more, but also gives people a behind the scenes look at who created the exhibit. So the process of design that we have here is I wanted it to be complementary to the colors that Sam and Patricia had discussed. Again, that like 70s type vibe, which I want everyone to know that Sam and I purposely picked out our outfits today to complement what we have going on the screen. We like screamed at each other when we got to school.
Really hoping it was gonna work.
So I wanted there to be an essence of whoever is looking at this website. I know Patricia is trying to find a way to get this published so that there's more access to it. People would be able to see who built the exhibit. And I think that that is particularly important considering that a lot of what we say in the promotional videos, what we talk about is that this exhibit is about students. And in a way, that does include Sam and I, and that does include students who worked on the exhibit, right? Because we ourselves are finding community and joy and creating change through building this. Mm-hmm. And so I also wanted this to be interactive. I tried really hard to add elements that were eye-catching, to add elements that people could move around so that people who were using this and looking at this could make their own choices about how they were going to guide themselves through the website. So I tried to make it in a way so that no matter if you decided, I don't want to look at any of this, I want to go straight to the catalog to see what the sources were, or I want to go straight to the exhibit to look at all the photos, it would make sense to people. So although I had an idea of how I hoped people would navigate the website, which is like left to right of the bar that I put at the top, people could make those choices and they wouldn't get confused. This was incredibly difficult to do, far more difficult than I thought it would be when I said I was going to do this. I have used website builders before for projects, but never to this extent where I felt it really needed to look professional. So it was really important that there was a place in which people could go and maybe engage with the pictures in a way that they could not yet in the physical exhibit, because we don't have the stories up yet, except for the main anchor photos on the profile, the portrait wall. The collage wall does not yet have text that really tells the story behind the photos. And I think that that's really important, and a decision that can be made later if we think that kind of text is necessary or would be good for movement through the exhibit. There is a lot that an online portion can do that the physical exhibit may not be able to do, right? So animation and people being able to make choices about how they navigate it gives the students or faculty or people who find this online, gives them more of a buy-in and how they are able to interact with the exhibit. And I think that that is really exciting and a really great way to encourage engagement. The interactive component, I think, is very, very important.
There we go.
And as far as collaboration on this, it was hard to design, but like getting materials from Patricia and Sam, because they were kind of sitting all over Google Docs, or I'd text Sam and be like, hey, can you finish this for me so we can finish the website? It was like, it wasn't hard. And I actually think that maybe this is like not an example of how most public history projects go, because Sam and I are very close friends. So communication was very easy. We talk all the time anyways. And so I think about how, like, if I worked on another project, that kind of being able to joke around and be silly and really get work done and communicate is probably not the case in all projects. Same with Patricia. Like, I think because we are all so comfortable with each other, that is a big reason why this website and the exhibit as a whole was able to happen the way that it did, because it is really hard to be creative in environments where you're not comfortable or don't feel supported if you have a dumb idea. right? You want people to be like, you know, even if it's dumb, I'm glad you're thinking. Like it's okay to have ideas that are bad, because if you don't have bad ideas, you can never have good ideas. I'm trying to capture that as a grad student. We've had to learn. And I think this website itself, especially in displaying how students have been involved in the process and the thinking, that itself is a reflection of the themes that we really wanted to be apparent in the physical exhibit. Because I think I said this before, like, this exhibit itself has fostered community. Sam and I, and Patricia and all of us have gotten so much closer. Sam and I, when we were first putting up the mock photos the first week and doing math and having to measure stuff and then like getting mad and then bringing all of that energy into the history lounge and all of our measurements and our photos, and then getting our friends to engage and be like, we need you to help us measure this. So it was like an involvement of a lot of people that we then still joke about, because there was a lot of arguing that was like genuine mad at each other.
I apologize.
So like that fostered community, right? We had a lot more involvement than just us, even later in the term, in fostering relationships. And there was a lot of joy in getting to be a part of this. So that in itself has been incredibly important, not just to my career and learning as a public historian, but feeling like I am a part of Portland State community. I think that can be particularly difficult here because it is a commuter school. So I am hoping that this exhibit really can help tie people to place and to meaning here. And I think that that is a really important thought to have. When we got surprised by a group of high schoolers coming in for a tour, and Patricia like ran over and snatched their teachers. And she was like, you guys want to come do a walkthrough? And something that was really fun about that too is seeing the high schoolers engage with like the sports photos. They really liked the volleyball photo and some of the more sports photos. Same with the teachers. I had one of the women come up to me and they were like, I remember that volleyball championship. I remember when that happened. So yeah, it's been really fruitful. I think there are a lot of dynamic ways that this exhibit has fostered community itself, just as the point that it already stands in. So thank you.